Well, Vince McMahon comes out with Patterson and Briscoe to tear down the cage with the truck, which, if you watched it, was a suspect at best looking truck based on what we saw in the back.
It's a truck.
It is, but there's some silliness in the back.
What silliness?
Foley is going to deck Patterson and Briscoe. Security immediately takes Vince McMahon out. They've got a junkyard like set here with beat up cars that everybody's taking bumps on. And Meltzer would say this was really good. The funny thing is, this was almost exactly minus the even more dangerous spots. What WCW did with the Junkyard Battle Royal, where half the crew got hurt and it was so poorly lit, it came off as a disaster. That's not what's happening here, though, of course. Triple H is going to put Austin's head through a windshield. Lots of people are bleeding here. Triple H gives Rock a pedigree on the roof, and there's more blood there. Undertaker is going to slam Angle on the hood of a car. Undertaker eventually is going to be bleeding because he gets hit with a chair. Just lots of blood everywhere. And Meltzer would say he thinks Angle, this might actually be his first time getting color in his entire career. Quote, I wonder if when he was getting that gold medal, he was thinking that 4 years later he'd be a millionaire from it and be slicing open his forehead with a blade. Well, eventually Rikishi goes to the top. There's some brawling on the top. Finally, everyone but Rikishi and the Undertaker climbs down. And what you know it, Rikishi draws the short stick. He's the one who takes the bump backwards off the top of the cage into what Meltzer called the heavily padded back of the truck, filled with padding, a tarp, and a ton of wood shavings. It was basically an amusement park or gymnastic pit bump. But if they're going to do it, they pretty much promised, and the hype was there. It's a lot better to do it this way than someone getting a serious injury. Until fans tire of these bumps, they're going to be done. It's just a question of how to attempt to provide a plausible reason for something being there with padding to break the falls. So let's take a timeout right there. Do you remember how you guys came up with what if there was a truck?
God, I have no fucking idea how they came up with it, and I hated it.
I didn't like it either.
I just, I was of the mindset from day one of you didn't need the bump. You didn't need craziness. It's big enough. Jesus, we have all the top talent in the world in there, and we have a match. That's going to be spectacular. Let the match be spectacular. Go do your gaga. Go do your shit, man. And the cars and everything around it. That's great. But wanted the bump. Oh, you got the bump. Everybody's done the bump. It's just funny when you think about who did the first big bump off the cage. It was Shawn Michaels, and he did it from the middle. That was the big, huge bump. And then, Mick doing his thing just set that stage that everybody had to outdo it. And spectacular as it was, I don't know that it really added anything to the business overall, because it just became a stunt show to see what bigger stunt we can do. And it adds unnecessary danger. And I'm looking at it as a promoter. I'm looking at it as a creative guy that doesn't want to see people get injured in any way, shape, or form. And that's how I look at it. It's just I fear for those guys when they do crazy things, because I want them to walk out of the arena that night okay.
Right.
And that's, I think all of us do. And Vince would always listen to these ideas and temper them with the safety and the confidence. Not everybody got to do that shit. They want to do it. So that's all.
After the big bump, Rock and Austin finally square off in the middle of the ring, and there's a huge reaction. It's like years before when it was Undertaker, or not Undertaker, but Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior. And then they get going. Rock's going to block the stunner, hit a spine buster, goes for the people's elbow, but Triple H stops him. Rock does a rock bottom on Kurt Angle. Austin delivers a stunner on Rock. Triple H hits a neck breaker on Austin, and Angle crawls on top of Rock for the pin. Meltzer would say pretty clear this finish is going to be brought up several times between now and April of how Rock had Angle beat for the title, but Austin stunned him and cost him the match. Of course, after the match, Austin hits Angle with a stunner and leaves. 4.5 stars. And Meltzer would say this: the WWS final pay-per-view event of its biggest year was sold as a one-match card, and even after buying the show, most of the first 2 hours of the show came across like an ad to buy a show already purchased. After a flat undercard, there was nothing that was terribly bad, but nothing that was particularly good, and it dragged at times because there was so much hype that would have been best served being on Sunday Night Heat, but the main event finally took place. As good as anyone's expectations of the Hell in a Cell with 6 men, this turned out to be much better, to the point it may have even been the WWF's best match of a year that had a lot of strong pay-per-view main events. So one match show probably is the story. And if you're going to watch one match from this show, make it this one. The main event.
Well, that's the only match, to watch on the show.
Francis Reyes wants to know, was the pine chip on the truck a working chip or a shoot chip? And on a side note, where'd you get it from? Any idea where they got the wood chips from here, Bruce?
Ruffles.
Oh, I thought for sure it was Wood Chips R Us.
They have ridge. No, Ruffles have ridges.
Eric wants to know, what would it sound like if Jim Cornette sang Sweet Home Alabama?
Well, I'd have to think about that one for a minute.
Especially when your arm's feeling better. Jason wants to know, where did the nickname The One come from for Billy Gunn?
Again, shit. Yeah, that one I don't fucking know. I didn't even remember that he was the one, Billy Gunn.
Steve wants to know, where do you get all these rundown cars for the entrance set? Are they driven into the arena or carted in?
Depends on if they can drive or not.
Yeah.
Most of the rundown shit, man, you gotta get you gotta take all the gas tanks, all that shit out of them. So hopefully, usually they're all junk and all that stuff. Can't have a motorized vehicle inside of an enclosed kind of thing like that with a gas tank in it.
Michael has an interesting question. We often hear about Vince not asking talent to do things he wouldn't do, or that he would do them first. Did Vince take the Rikishi bump earlier in the day?
No, he didn't, but he would have.
I'm sure of that.
Take it in a heartbeat.